So, I want to explain about the effectiveness of deterrence, all right? And I understand deterrence come in different forms. But trying to call extorting somebody and blackmailing somebody a deterrent while trying to claim that you didn't do anything wrong because you didn't know that extortion and blackmail is not means that will win you in court when you were wanting to try to mince words and nuance and contexts while trying to justify your actions. All right. So, for example, we talk about what's a good deterrent for young, young people getting, pregnant. Um, Give them autonomy. How so? Well, if their parents are lying to them about the consequences of sex, trying to monstrosize the topic rather than the fact that there's a safe implication, that's a disservice to everyone. Alright? That disservice extends to whoever is receiving that disservice by thinking that they are consensually engaging in a sexual encounter with the misinformed. Alright? So, ultimately, understand parenthood is determined, is a deterrent. Because, hey, you're in charge of this person for 18 years. So, ultimately, you're responsible for keeping this thing alive, and you're legally culpable if you don't keep it alive until it's 18. Alright, that's a pretty big responsibility. Yeah, I could see how that's a long-term decision. It's like, alright, well, how could this possibly backfire? In walks young person with a penchant to not listen to society and warnings. Rebellious, quote unquote. But now here's the thing. You've given them this conversation thinking that it's going to be a deterrent. Now here's the thing. Personality factor wise, this person is a complete total egomaniac. They want a reason to be able to have long-term reason for people to not leave their life. Why would they have the motivation to prevent people from leaving their life? Because their actions, their attitude, or their demeanor has caused people to want to leave their life. So, they want to try to force somebody to stay. How do they force them to stay? Shared obligation. This child that the two of you created. Alright? Ultimately, for one person, that child's existence could be the reason that they didn't kill themselves. They felt lost in the world. They felt like they needed something to be able to devote themselves to. Devotion is dangerous. Alright? Understand. When you try to claim a level of devotion or vocalize a level of devotion in comparison to actions, alright? All lip service. If somebody is requesting more allegiance than you can give them, and you're never able to meet their expectations, don't blame them and claim that they've got complacent when they've stopped trying to accomplish the impossible. But you have proven that the impossible is pleasing you. So, now explain when you're being impossible to please why I should feel bad that you haven't worked that issue out and resolved it within yourself. Oh, the outcome just wasn't what you were expecting. Alright, so even lowering the odds. Alright? When you reduce the outcome to 50-50, half and half chance, reduces possible outcomes. Alright? That's the difference between the statistics of whether a child is going to come out one of three genders. Alright? Boy, girl, or other. What's other? The trans community. How is the trans community other? The reason that they're other is because they don't identify with the way that they look on the outside. They feel like they were the wrong gender. You telling them that they're wrong, you're invalidating their feelings. Alright? So, if they start invalidating that you are the gender that you identify as, don't fucking blame them. You started it. They just playing your game. Alright? So now, other. Why do they need a specific faction? Because you've said that they're invalid. So now, we need to make our own third party. Well, what good could them starting their third party do? Let's use the democratic process as an example. There are some people that, despite thinking that people from the Democratic Party have good ideas, they don't like their flaws. People thinking that the Republican Party has good ideas don't like their flaws. None of them end up fitting. Wrong size. Not one size fits all at all. Well, how do you go ahead and alleviate that problem? Breaking down sections, subsections, getting down to the smallest common denominator. Well, not invalidating people's feelings or shutting them up, saying that they're not allowed to have an opinion by not allowing them to engage in the process to speak up for themselves. Alright? So, that being said, odds-wise, we're going to say, gender-wise, 3 potential outcomes. You know? The third option, though, the third outcome, ultimately, just because perception-wise, it was, you were thinking that it was one way, it was actually another. Alright, so probability and statistics. There. You greatly increase the chance of one of 3 probabilities. Alright? Because of that situation. So, gender. 3 options. Now, democratic process. More options. Alright? Because black and white thinking doesn't work. So, Democrat or Republican thinking doesn't work. Both sidesisms do not work. How? Giving more options. Alright, well, in order to give more options and get to the right results, there's a tool that's needed. What's that tool? Proper informed consent. Literally giving informed consent, like literally giving people the right information, not lying to them, and then, yeah. So I understand the lesson when it comes to the lying thing. But you can't end justify the means, after kidnapping, extortion, blackmail, and all that. And then be like, this started as a lesson of trying to give the boy who cries wolf lesson. How could there have been a less extreme way to give an allegory? You said the name of the tool to use the fucking allegory. Give them the story of the boy who cried wolf. Point made, point gotten. Difference is, now you need to justify your fucking cruelty because you broke the law, abused, manipulated, coerced, blackmailed, extorted, literally kept somebody wrongfully detained. Alright? While trying to justify that you didn't break any laws, well, by preventing them from getting them where they were expected to be, where they even were getting paid to be. Alright? That's called tortious interference with contract, or tortious interference with business obligations. If you take the tools away from them, and then keep calling them a fuck up, because you have made it impossible for them to finish the task, go ahead, keep threatening to bring that to a fucking courtroom. Because if the person literally has proof and has explained every fucking law you've broke in the process of trying to apparently get your point across because the person is hard-headed, now you need to justify why the fuck that it's allowed apparently to be a criminal when apparently you're doing the whole thing as a deterrent to fucking crime. While at the same time also trying to claim this person is a criminal. Over excessive punishment, cruel and unusual punishment, over excessive bail. Alright, then you need to compensate them for all the time that you went to go waste on their end, while breaking the law in the process of trying to make your point, to compensate them for the time that you've already wasted of theirs. Then we'll fucking actually take into consideration what the fuck you have to say. Or, you know what? We'll give you the option, the free option. All right? Because ultimately, policing isn't supposed to be pay for protection racket. All right? Ultimately, when police try to charge for their services in order for the innocent to be able to actually be taken seriously as the fucking innocent, rather than trying to form an angry mob because the outcome and the results weren't what you wanted. Which, by the way, there's a difference between, collective gathering and organizing for crime. You seeing the point there? All right. So you committed a crime while trying to be preachy and explain why crime is wrong. But you don't want to have to explain to your boss how you fucked up with your job. So you're expecting the person that you victimized to take the loss? Because you fucked up in your job. Now the victim now has to be re-victimized while being publicly persecuted. Think what the fuck that justice actually means. Think what the fuck law actually means. And then realize, if you go ahead and allow anonymity, all right, anonymity is the enemy of accountability, all right? Anonymously, if you own up to your shit, all right, with the stipulation of if you own up to it, but we provide some form of anonymity, all that's doing, that's gifting emotional closure to the person that went to go victimize somebody. All right? Now you want to give people a chance to explain. But you need to go ahead and first, the equivalent of a warning shot, which is the reason for the saying, shoot first, ask questions later. You can't shoot first, ask questions later, and then also at the opposite end, saying that because of you making an impulse decision, that you were making an educated decision. All right? That education
That could either be premeditation, like the intent of a crime, or premeditation, like preparation, to attempt to be the person to help stop crimes. How do people get away with crimes? Debating the existence of victimless crimes. All right? Trump views his fraud as victimless crimes. Who are the victims? The poor! The poor are the fucking victims! The people that have been defrauded and nickel and dimed into oblivion! The fucking poor! The ones that are literally the fucking casualties, just barely limping along in the process of your attempted fucking economic warfare. That's who the fucking victims is. They come in many, many, many different shapes and sizes. So stop looking at somebody and acting like they're not a victim or they are a victim. All right. So when it comes down to it, how many victims are there? Literally at this point we're debating who should be paid first. Why don't we acknowledge the factor that if you're having to ask what you're wanting accountability for, you've already fucked up? Like, what is it that was done that I'm apparently supposed to go ahead and financially hemorrhage for? Trump University, the attempted organization of the military, almost starting World War III, attempting to put the pieces into place to orchestrate World War III, so that way you could blame the new guy that came in, because you knew that you fucked up so royally that you're trying to do what you can to repaint the narrative. And the funny thing is, people going ahead and arguing which matters to him more, money or his life. Well, you're arguing that money matters to him more than his fucking life, while trying to claim he doesn't want to take accountability, while he is giving all his money to prevent from ending up in a situation of being locked up, because of the factor that people that want him locked up want him killed. All right, kind of understanding the point a little bit more. Are you understanding the importance of nuance and accountability? So, like, for example, if my ex goes ahead and tries to say, oh, I got away with it all, I didn't have to deal with the accountability factor, and everyone thinks that they're the asshole, oh yeah, I definitely wanted everything. Everybody that you're bragging to about that, they now know that your ex is innocent, because you manipulated to try to frame them. Well, you were pissed off that they didn't get locked up because you forgot fingerprints, electronics, weaponization, all that, and you didn't get the end result you wanted. But you wanted to argue that apparently your safety was in danger. Maintaining a distance has proven that your safety is not in danger, but you want their rights taken away. Oh, you're saying that they just saying what they want everyone to think to try to prevent from their rights being taken away. How about this? You just want to oppress them while wanting to claim males have been oppressing females since the dawn of time. Therefore, you're justified in oppressing people while trying to make the point oppression bad but won't stop oppressing because need to make sure the point got across clearly. But there's no way to be able to assess and measure their threat level. Yeah, there is. It was already done. You know how? When the Department of Justice ends up going and being like, all right, we're going to find out about your capability. Nobody's putting their faces or names on this shit. All right? Firearm, ammunition, public. So you are not detained. You are not arrested. There's the public. There's a weapon. There's the parts of the weapon needed to use it to make it functional. All right? Now here's the target. Who's your boss? We're not telling you. Who's the target? We're going to tell you that. Who wants the made target? We're not telling you that. What direction is your moral compass going to take? Oh, the person that was the potential in an attempted homicide investigation. Which, by the way, the person's still alive to be able to testify. But, yeah, how could they prove their innocence and prove that they're not a public threat? Oh, that was already done. How was that already done? Gave them access to the weapon, gave them access to ammunition, gave them access to the public, understanding that they had such tools at home. Now the question is, what did they utilize that tool with? Was there anybody hurt? No. Was there anybody shot? No. Was the weapon discharged? Yeah. Yeah. No one hurt, no one dead, was discharged, but was not discharged to anybody. All right. Well, what was your target? Coke cans and water bottles. What? Coke cans and water bottles? Oh, yeah, but they're definitely a victim. They're definitely a victim in a crime here and everything like that. So, we're going to want to go ahead and bring this to court. It's like, hey, we're going to talk about ethical and responsible gun ownership. How about stop trying to demonize the person that was taught how to use a gun? And that has proven by example already. All right? Yes, they have the capability of being able to do harm. Yes, the tools exist to be able to do harm. Given the opportunity, did they choose to do harm? No. Was there risk? Absolutely. What was the risk of? The risk was the identity of the person making said request. You know? Ultimately, it's like, why is the whole hitman thing or public bounty thing not a good idea? Because if the only thing that matters to somebody is money, but they're not willing to hear out the opposing side, they don't know if they're going ahead and killing the victim of an abuser that has painted the victim out to be the abuser to get them killed to try to justify the homicide. So there would have been a homicide if you didn't intervene as a mediator. So if you wouldn't have found it unconscionable when somebody was trying to openly talk to you about wanting somebody else killed, we wouldn't have been able to apprehend the person that had wanted to orchestrate a murder. So you were a deterrent to murder, despite the factor that your job description is murderer. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Why is that the case? Um, why the fuck am I going to kill the victim of the abuse and take money from the abuser to kill the victim to give them the chance to not face accountability? This is literally, I don't want to face consequences for my actions, so I'm going to throw money at some third-party idiot to go ahead and try to make my problems disappear by trying to deny the information needed to be able to make a proper assessment on the situation. So the omitting of information and the distortion of information made your decision for you. Yeah. Why is that? Well, wanted to get down to the bottom of it, debated, wanted to believe the cooler heads would prevail, went, and despite the fact that people think that my job description is take action, and if I didn't take action, that I failed, action was taken. Action that would get the proper results that you would want. Alright? Ultimately, by letting the victim survive, despite the abuser's attempt of defamation, in order to try to paint the abuser as the perpetrator through a psychological technique that's actually listed out psychologically, called DARVO. Defend, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. So, fancy way of saying putting the shoe on the other foot or analyzing the shoes that were put on the other foot. So, somebody wanted you to be judge, jury, and executioner, not giving you information, and was mad that decision didn't weigh in their favor. Yeah. Why? They didn't take personal experience into account. So, like, for example, what's an example of that? Ethicality of abortion. How's that an example of that? Well, ultimately, whether when it comes down to arguments and debates, there's really huge debates in general when it comes down to it. Ethicality of giving birth, ethicality of children. What's the damage that's done to to society, by not having children? Potentially with the person to the care to help the disease that you could potentially have. That person could potentially not be born, and with abortion being around, that person could be killed. Very true. All right. Ultimately, what was it that's the enemy of innovation? Basically wanting to stay stuck in the past, not moving forward. Yeah. It's like, well, what's the ethicality when it comes to abortion as far as, pro-abortion stance? Pro-abortion stance, we don't have to deal with another Hitler situation again. Because potentially the next attempted fascist dictator, for all we know, you want to go ahead and shame somebody for getting abortion and everything. It's like, hey, look at them as a hero. They potentially killed the next Hitler. Do you want another Hitler? I don't want another Hitler. Okay. So, should be your choice, right? You know which way it happens and everything? Well, there are two people involved. So, both people should be involved in that choice. Responsibility and consequence-wise. Alright. So, y'all have been able to raise a child without being together? Yeah. They wanted to trap me. I escaped their trap. How? Not buying into their emotionally manipulative and psychologically invalidating bullshit. Sounds like you dodged a bullet. Yup. You see my point here? And by the way, I just want to point out, this is me going ahead and talking now. I'm just under the 30-minute mark. Yeah, I've just barely given you one scratch of all of the nuances that need to be talked. Because understand, we're talking about a discussion that, well, people are wanting to disregard time, and the amount of times that it's gone over and everything. You want to invalidate my time, but you want your time to be respected and valued. What makes you my superior? What makes you better than me? What makes your input and your opinion more valuable than mine? What is it when it comes down to the two of us? That is an equalizer that makes you on a higher, superior footing than me. Whatever it is that you went and inserted that makes you think that you're better than me, that right there, that is your God. That is your importance. That is what matters to you most. All right? That right there, because I've yet to find an actual equalizer. That right there, knowing that that's what you've got your fixation on, understand regardless of what it is, that's what I'm going to go after, because your desires, that end goal, that's your prize. If I prevent you from getting your prize, I've won. All right. Now, what is it that makes your opinion more important than mine and more valuable than mine and all that? Or your time to be more valuable and everything like that. It's like, funny. As long as you're alive, you've got more opportunity to get money. Opportunity, as long as you're alive, you get more opportunities. As long as you're alive, you get more opportunities and potential to meet people that will end up lining up with your personal values. If your values and the people you are around have different values and everything, that doesn't necessarily make you enemies. The amount of invalidation that one side or another ends up presenting determines the guilty party. All right? So if the only thing that you have is your fix-all or your magic fucking universal solution to all problems is to invalidate or try to minimize what other people perceive as a problem or perceive as a viewpoint, you're not the good guy. That's not a strategy. That literally is the definition of you either end up dying a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. There. Now, trying to keep my opinion out of conversations, that's all you're able to do. But what makes me think that automatically that the people you're presenting your side of the story without wanting the other person's side of the story to be heard, what's enabling me to think that they're intellectually superior? Nothing. You know why? Because they're so fucking stupid that they don't want to hear both sides of the fucking story before coming to a conclusion. Seeing my point there. Therefore, their opinion does not fucking matter to me, and I do not believe that they're fucking smarter or stupider than me. If anything, I'm going to assume that they are stupider than me, just because lived experience. At least I'm willing to hear out both sides of the story and take the time out to try to digest all the fucking details presented to me. Try to think about what's potentially information-wise being withheld from me. Try to put the pieces together and trying to do it in the sake of diplomacy in comparison than wanting to jump to violence and lack of action or action. Literally determining the necessity